Good afternoon and welcome to a very special edition of the Community Difference Plano, coming at you live from my house in Plano, Texas. It's going to be a different show today. We're going to talk about some of the things that happened in Uvalde, not specifically that incident, but we want to try to transpose that into our community and figure out what would we have done differently, what can we learn from that, what's happening within our community to make sure that type of tragedy, that type of evil doesn't come to our city. And so we're going to talk to some people on experts with firearms, obviously some concerned parents that have some great ideas. And so it's going to be a really interesting show. And I'm talking a little bit longer at the beginning than I normally do, because I want to make sure you know that the goal is not to pick sides necessarily or push any kind of agenda. It's just to try and seek truth together and try and separate the noise from reality and figure out what's the best thing for our students, what's the best thing for our kids, what's the best thing for our citizens. So please stick around, comment. It's going to be a special show today. We hope you enjoy it, but more than that, we hope you find truth and you see some options of ways to get involved and make your voice heard for the betterment of our schools and our city. Talk to you soon. Plano Community Difference starts now.
Tune in to watch our communities grow. See how our citizens, local governments, churches, small businesses, schools, and our local sports teams are coming together and partnering to make the difference. Are you ready? Let's go. Welcome to the Community Difference, Plano, Texas, with your host, Nathan Smith, and powered by the Difference live stream radio and podcast. So if you love your community and you love supporting the folks and businesses that make your community so special, then we invite you to like, follow, and subscribe to our pages, and then tune into each show to experience the community difference.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Community Difference in Plano, Texas. I'm your host, Nathan Smith. We are delighted that you're here for a very special edition of the Community Difference in Plano, Texas. It's a very heavy subject, quite honestly, and we want to take some time to try and dissect in a way that is really a innocent pursuit of truth, right? Innocent pursuit of options, and not just trying to find blame or come to some sort of exalted position immediately, but just seek truth together and try to figure out what is best for our city, for our community, for our school district when it comes to our children's safety. And of course, obviously in the news in the last couple of weeks, not only the school shooting in Uvalde, which is just the height of evil and tragedy. And I think it's important to just be angry and be upset and grieve in those moments. And unfortunately, people on all sides of any argument or any tragedy don't take long enough to acknowledge what has happened and the loss of life and the sadness that really is, quite honestly. And so I think rather than just trying to come in and blast opinions and talk about well, this is what we need to do, and we're gonna try and share some of those things today, but we want to do it in a respectful way. We didn't get to talk about this last week because it was a fifth Tuesday, so we don't have a show on the fifth Tuesday if there is one. I think there's 3 of those every year. So we got a little bit of reprieve. Unfortunately, in our time away, a terrible tragedy took place. So we want to talk about that, not in the means of to blame or condemn, but just to find truth in the matter and say, what can we learn from that as a community? What can we do as parents, as citizens? What should our expectations be of our leaders, of our school board, of our school district, right? What can we do to really make a difference and not just continue to talk about things, but actually put some stuff into focus and into action? And so on this show, I think probably for her fourth time here, we have a good friend, Jerah Hutchins. I'm going to bring Jerah on here. And we're obviously, anytime you're talking about a school shooting, there is the whole firearms issue that emerges, and but there's also such a you get a lot of people that don't know anything about firearms that suddenly become armchair experts. They Monday morning quarterback situations, and I don't want to approach this from it's not about the firearm issue and you may have that view, and different, we all have our views here, but I want to just have Jerah talk about some of the just falsities, if that's even a word, I think it is, that she's heard and that have emerged through not only this incident but other incidents. Because truthfully, if you're looking for truth, if you're looking for solutions, if you're looking for ways of preventing or identifying or of keeping certain things like this from happening, you've got to have an honest pursuit of all different facets of an incident, right? You hear the term mental health going around. You hear security. You hear, there's people talking about, should we arm teachers? Is it just the gun? Should we get rid of all the guns, right? All these different things that kind of, a lot of times with good intentions from the average layperson, not always with good intentions from our politicians. But before you kind of talk about some of those things that you're seeing that are just not true, right? Not good information. Talk about kind of why you're qualified to talk about those things, your experience, history with firearms. I know you're part of the Texas State Guard. Talk about what that means, how you got into that. So take a couple minutes to just talk about how awesome you are. I know you don't want to do that, but just want to give yourself a little credibility for this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on again. This is such an important topic, and it's a conversation that we need to have again and again. I am in the Texas State Guard. We are basically the military for Texas. We belong to Texas. We can only be activated by the Texas governor. And we do respond to state emergencies like floods, hurricanes, fires, etc. There is a small armed component to what we do. But moreover, I've been shooting for 30 years and I've been teaching for 13 years. And a firearms education is so much more than pointing and shooting at a static target. You have to understand how moving targets work. You have to understand how ballistics works. You have to understand how to maneuver in doorways and corners. And, when your eyesight is, shooting in low light, things like that. There's a lot to a firearms education. And one of the falsehoods that I see a lot when things like this happen is people always say guns don't belong in schools. And that's not true. I don't believe that's true. I think that evil people with guns don't belong in schools. And so we have to remember that guns don't have brains, guns don't make decisions. Okay. And I want people that are tuning in, I want people to think about it like this. There's 81 million households, over 81 million households in the United States that have firearms in the home. You're okay with turning your children over to someone else to care for them and protect them 8 hours a day for 9 months of the year. But you also care for your children, and they also live in your home where firearms are. And you have firearms there so that you can protect your children. Why would you not want those who want to take the training and want to protect your children? Why would you not allow them to do that in school? Is that not just a larger version of your home? I mean, I think that that's the perspective that we should be looking at, because you need to ask yourself, what are you expecting of teachers? What are you asking of teachers? They are there to not just educate your children, they're there to protect your children. And there are a lot of people that are trying to not give them the tools that they might need to do that. And if someone is coming in with a gun to kill your children, someone else needs to have a gun to eliminate that threat.
Yeah, it's so here's the basic thought here is that, okay, we would all love to stop people with bad intentions from using guns in any scenario, whether it's a convenience store. There was some other shooting at a hospital in the last couple of weeks. Obviously, what happened in Buffalo was a tragic thing, and we're going to get to the mental health side of that, and how do you keep or stop or identify before you even get to the point of using a gun with nefarious intentions. But if you make the assumption that evil people are going to do evil things, which is not a hard assumption to make, right? We live in a broken world. We live in a fallen humanity. And we try to partner and redeem that and bring about goodness. But there's a level of self-preservation and protection that has to go into that. And so it's certainly a conversation to be had. Now, Jerah, I'll listen to an interview that you gave after the Parkland shooting. What was it, 4 years ago? I think 2018. And one of the big, you mentioned that, and one of the big counterpoints, I guess, was one, funding for something like that, and two, people always go to the worst case scenario. Well, what if somebody knows that they're carrying a gun and they have they take that gun? Well, worst case scenario is that nobody's carrying a gun and multiple people get shot. I mean, I think that's the worst case scenario. And so we look at we look at the tragedy through very detailed glasses. We try to take the simplest. Well, guns were the problem. Let's get rid of the guns. But we don't look at the prevention through as much detail and scrutiny. And that's
complacency is the enemy. Complacency is the enemy. And this continues to happen because we continue to be complacent. And this also continues to happen. Well, let me put it another way. Complacency is the enemy, but we also cannot operate in a fantasy land where we feel like we can legislate prevention of this 100%. We can't do it. We can't do it. Okay. And we have to admit that. And that's something that I think is really, really hard for parents to swallow, is how do we just get rid of this? You can't. Okay. But
that's why we have laws. That's why we have laws to begin with, because if legislating morality was a thing, then we would just say, well, no murdering, and then, oh well, no one's murdered anymore.
But that's
unfortunately not the case.
In people's heads, they think that laws prevent things. Laws don't prevent things. A law is something that's written down that says, hey, society says this thing is bad. And if you do this thing, these are the consequences. That's what a law is. A law is consequences for something that's already done. Mm-hmm. Right? So the prevention aspect comes through processes. It comes through situational awareness. And it comes through training, and it comes through getting rid of complacency.
So, in a moment, we're coming up on a break here in just a moment, and we're going to bring on Rachel Shaw, one of a parent through Plano ISD, and also has a child in private school. So we kind of get two different perspectives. I'm really looking forward. I know you're looking forward to talking to her as well. When you talk about complacency, and I was a little frustrated because the general gist of this show, obviously, is to bring about kind of a synergy. I use that word a lot, between all aspects of community life, right? We have had people from the school district on, we've had community leaders, we've had small business owners, veterans groups, nonprofits. I mean, all kinds of things to highlight good that's happening in the community. And there is a ton of good. Like, Plano is an awesome city. It's a great place to eat. I mean, it's an awesome foodie city. I mean, pretty much all of North Texas is. And so I want to, that's generally what we try to do. But to your point, Jerah, you can't be complacent on topics like this, right? If Plano's crime rate is one of the lowest. I mean, it's very good in that scenario across the board in most areas. So there's obviously some things that we're doing right as a city. We haven't had any school shootings, praise the Lord. I know that would be the worst thing ever to even think about that. But then you can't just kind of get up on your high horse and think, well, we've got it figured out. And so I was a little frustrated because we've got a great relationship with a couple people from the city, from the school district, and I wanted to invite them on and find out, what is Plano doing to, what do they already have in place? One, because I'm sure they'd have some things in place that are helpful. But she, and I'm not going to mention her name. She's been on the show, great person, love her to death. Hope she continues to be on the show. But she just didn't see it possible to have, superintendent or anybody come on, because there's so many different departments working together to come up with kind of solutions and stuff like that, which I totally understand. I understand that. It should be multifaceted, but also you should be willing to say, hey, here's where we're at. Here's what we need help with. What are your thoughts? This is what we're working on. Like,
this is not as complicated, though.
Right.
This isn't as complicated as they're making it out to be. I mean, you have to look at history. This stuff didn't start happening until the 70s. I mean, in the 1950s, there was one mass shooting. That's it. Okay. Guns.
Our parents took guns into their school.
Yeah, the guns were more prevalent then than they ever were now. You could literally order a gun in the mail and have it delivered to your house. What is changing? Mental
Right.
health. That is the answer. Nobody wants to admit it, and nobody wants to have the real conversations about that.
I think I want to say something after the break. We're going to go to break here, but when we come back, I think there's a reason. Well, there's a lot of reasons for that, probably, but one that I want to mention specifically, and then we'll bring in Rachel Shaw, a parent of a couple Plano ISD and private school students. So we'll stick around after this, and we'll be right back on the Community Difference.
The difference is made possible by the following small businesses.
Real property management focus, an unmatched level of service to property owners, investors, and tenants throughout the DFW Metroplex.
Katie Owen, the insurance gal, helps overwhelmed Medicare-eligible people successfully navigate the enrollment process. When turning 65, retiring, and signing up for Medicare for the first time, it can be confusing. So it's important to get guidance from someone you can trust. Katie helps her clients navigate the enrollment process in a way that eliminates the feeling of being overwhelmed and unsure and leaves her clients feeling relieved and confident. If you have questions about the Medicare process and want advice from someone you can trust, reach out to Katie at 972-943-3943 or at her website, www.insgal.com.
When you need a trusted roofing company on your side to help you out with storm damage repair for your roof, call Cook DFW Roofing. Serving Anna, Melissa, Princeton, Prosper, Van Alstyne, and all of the DFW area.
Red Branch Realty and owner realtor Ashley Gentry are true champions at every level. As a top producer, Ashley Gentry and Red Branch Realty truly embody their mission of being your supporter and partner in your personal real estate journey. So if finding the best representation possible in achieving the American dream of homeownership is important to you, give Ashley a call at 972-342-1869. WeatherTech General Contracting. We make your home renovation dreams a reality.
And by
Alan Lester, branch manager and team lead for the One Group, a branch of Town Square Mortgage. With over 22 years in the mortgage lending industry, Allen and Town Square Mortgage have many loan program options available from conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, jumbo, and many investor and self-employed programs. So if you're looking for the best in the business, give Allen a call at 214-681-0234.
For more information about our sponsors and their services, or if you would like information on how you and your business can partner with or sponsor this show, or others like it, just check the show description or comments for the relevant links and contact information. And now back to the show.
All righty, welcome back to the Community Difference on a special edition as we tackle some pretty difficult topics, serious topics. But to your point, Jerah, before the break, it doesn't have to be complicated necessarily. It's difficult because it's emotional, right? When we talk about people's lives, children's lives, even just adults' lives, anyone that has lost their life or been in some sort of shooting scenario, it's an emotional thing. And I never, I was thinking about this the other day. Like I don't expect the parents necessarily of the kids that that passed away to necessarily think logically through this. And I think it's our job to do that in advance so that we don't have to.
Well,
we don't have to.
You're right about that. We can't expect it, but it does happen. There were several parents.
Some do,
there were
correct.
Several parents of murdered students at Parkland that came forward. There was parents from Columbine. There was a guy that just wrote an essay, a dad who lost his daughter in Columbine that just wrote an essay and said, the gun is not the problem. It's the person behind the gun. We got to solve that problem. And we've got to keep our weapons and keep our situational awareness and keep our ability to identify threats. And we've got to keep that and combat it while we're looking at the mental health aspect of it.
Yeah,
so, I mean, there are parents that think logically through this. Yeah.
Well, that is good, because I say that because, I don't want to, when people are grieving, that's not the time to necessarily try to tell them to think logically, but if they can, that's an even bigger plus.
You're right about that.
You're kind of allowed to feel however you feel in those scenarios until you kind of to get your mental I guess, capacities back, which doesn't happen very quickly. I want to bring in Rachel Shaw. Rachel is we just got connected recently through Katie Owen, who's one of our sponsors. We're in a network group together. I think you just saw her commercial during break, which is pretty awesome.
Yes.
Rachel is a parent of a couple of students from Plano ISD and also at Plano private school. So she's got kind of a dual perspective. And before we get into that, I just want to, talk about when I bring on Plano guests, which is pretty much everybody on the show, just talk about how long you've lived in Plano, why you chose Plano, and what is it that you like about living here in Plano, Texas?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for having me on. And I just kind of want to preface this conversation with stating that, I am not an expert by any means. I do have a lot of parenting experience. I have a 24-year-old and a 16-year-old. So I do feel that I have a lot of knowledge that I can share. I lived in Plano. We just recently moved to McKinney, but I lived in Plano for about 15 years. Of course, one of the major reasons that we wanted to move to Plano was because of the school system. We wanted to make sure that our kids were getting the best education available. Both my boys grew up through Hedge Coates Elementary. That school is amazing. I know that there's a lot of other elementary schools around, but that school is amazing. I will be honest with you and say that I started as a parent to kind of feel the disconnect when your child goes through middle school, because you have a lot of other kids coming in, a lot of other parents you're trying to meet. And, I didn't feel the connection there like I did in elementary school. And through my child going through public school, then private school, and I'll be really honest. My oldest child, he started getting caught up with the wrong crowd, and I was like, that ain't going to happen. So we moved him to a private school. But and then my younger son was coming up through public school as well. And then we had made the choice to put him in private once he went into 9th grade. Personally, I feel that the schools are way too big. I feel that back in the day when I was going to school, when my parents were going to school, whenever there were problems at home, I felt like the teacher was that second line of defense. That teacher had that relationship with that child. These teachers don't have the opportunity to have a relationship with these kids because there's so many. It's just a revolving door. We need to develop that relationship with those teachers, and we just don't. Therefore, kids are getting missed. Kids that might be struggling with mental illness, I don't feel that they're being paid attention to.
That is such a good point because, I grew up in a small town in East Texas. My graduating class was 32 people. And, my teachers were like second parents to me.
Right.
And you're right. And they could discipline me. There wasn't nothing I could get away with without my parents finding out. And it was it was almost like having a baby monitor on me when my parents weren't around because they knew I couldn't get away with anything.
I'm sure you love that. I'm sure you love that.
Yeah.
I want to jump in on that because I agree with Rachel, but I also believe, and Jerah, you said something, I'm going to touch on that in a second, but we've created a society where parents aren't involved anymore. Mm-hmm. If you look at a lot of these shootings, it's uninvolved parents if they're even around.
Well, and this kid lived with his grandma. This last kid lived with his grandmother, which I don't know why, but that's not how it's supposed to be. Yeah, it's obviously not an ideal situation.
So back in the day, Jerah, because I was just like you, if I got in trouble at school, I got in more trouble when I got home. And it didn't matter what I said. It didn't matter how unfair I thought the teacher was. Mm-hmm. I got what I deserved pretty much. And I think that we as parents, and Rachel, thank you so much for being on the show. We as parents have to be more involved. And I know that a lot of us are. That's why there's not more school shootings.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. I do feel that if we were able to maybe minimize the class sizes, I know that's a big wish, but I really do feel that that would help. Obviously, yes, everything starts in the home. Everything does. But, if there's not a second line of defense there, they're going to slip through. I mean, it's inevitable.
Well,
I mean,
let me interrupt you real quick. So think about this too, like what we've all been talking about. I mean, generally speaking, I mean, I did a few dumb things in school, but generally speaking, I wasn't the problem kid. In my home, I grew up with two loving parents that are still together and still, and not if if you have divorced parents, it doesn't mean you're going to be crazy, right? But as long as they're involved in your life, right? But if you think about it, not just from a shooting standpoint, but kids that are into drugs, generally speaking, or kids that are the quote unquote bad kids in school, which doesn't mean just because you're a bad kid doesn't mean you can't recover and turn your life around. But if you track any of that stuff, it usually goes back to some issue in the home. I mean, that's all crime, generally speaking, is you've either gone off on your own away from the confines of a good environment, or you didn't have one to begin with. And that's where bad crap happens. I mean, it happens in every community, no matter what race, creed, religion, whatever. If you don't have good structure, you don't have love, if you don't have good leadership, if you don't have people telling you right from wrong, you're going to do some dumb crap. And unfortunately, it can escalate to something as tragically evil as a school shooting.
Right. Well, and also too, I think, I know I'm kind of flip-flopping here in a couple of things, but I feel that the whole mental awareness thing, I think starting to about that in middle school or high school, I think you're too late. I really would love to see some type of mental health classes, for each age range, maybe not every single year, but maybe, every 3 years, dealing with anxiety, dealing with bullying, dealing with, family problems at home. Where can you go to get help? I mean, these kids don't know. I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't know about half of the resources until maybe I was 35 that were available. How can you expect a child to know to go to a counselor or know, hey, I need counseling? Or, I mean, you can't expect that. Our kids are growing up way too quick, and we can't stop that. But what we can do is make them aware.
Well, but here's the other thing too. Until we can get a grip on our whole societal political correctness, there's too many people that are afraid to call out what they believe could be some mental health issue, red flags, because they're afraid of what's going to happen to them if they do.
It's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah. We've created it's like, you're afraid to be labeled a profiler, or you're just, making assumptions, or, whatever. Well, I don't care about that. If I can stop a crazy person from doing something bad, even if it's not a school shoot, I mean, even if it's just for their own sake, or suicide. I mean, my gosh, we had Miss Texas on a couple weeks ago, and she has a passion because she lost one of her really good friends growing up to suicide. And, unfortunately, mental health left untreated usually leads to some sort of major outward aggression, or somebody taking their life, or just doing something terrible. Either way, it starts with so to your point, Rachel, she has a book out that she wrote that basically she shares with kids in elementary that just helps them work through their feelings, and knowing it's okay to be sad, knowing it's okay to question things, and how to find resources. Now, we can argue, why are our kids needing that young of age, which is a whole nother issue. It's like, the more you unpeel the onion, you start to see how far our society has devolved. So you can say, well, gosh, this sucks.
I think we all know the answer. I think we all know the answer. It's social media and too many things. And I want to touch on this really quick because this is important to me, and I want you to know that I'm not a mother of biological children, but I teach a lot of kids. I have a lot of friends that are parents, and one of the things that parents do that I think is detrimental to children is they let them partake in way too many activities at school. Okay, you don't need to play 5 sports. Pick one. Okay, because that doesn't it not only puts pressure on the child to go to practice, and then you've got homework and you've got all this stuff, going on. Not only that, but now the parent has to, until you're of age to drive, which is higher than it used to be now, they've got to cart you around and do all these things. And now the parents don't have time to educate themselves. The parents don't have time to get a self-defense education. The parents don't have good time management skills. And now the whole house is going to crap because nobody has time to spend with the family and to learn these things. And now we're sending kids off to college with no self-defense education, no situational awareness education, and we're expecting them to be safe.
Yeah, and go ahead, Rachel, sorry.
No, I mean, I was going to, I agree and disagree a little bit. I do feel that activities are important. I mean, I've always had the saying that if you don't keep your kids busy, they're going to find something to get into. And typically that's not what you want your kids to do. So yes, I do believe in having your kids in maybe 2 sports. I don't believe in having them in that many activities because I do think that it's going to burn them out. They're going to get stressed and they don't need their parents there, do this, and, whatever the sport is. Yeah, I agree with that. But going back to the whole mental awareness, I mean, I feel that if that is being taught in the school and kids are getting it in their brain, I mean, who knows? I mean, I don't think anyone wishes to grow up to be a school shooter. I mean, there is something that clicks in their little brains at an early age. And I feel that if you are talking about the situation, talking about the ugly, because nobody wants to talk about the ugly. Everyone just wants to put a little cherry on top and hey, call it good. But I just
a lot of
communication.
A lot of parents.
Jerry, real quick,
absolutely.
Hold that thought. We got to go to break real quick. Hold that thought for the other side, guys. We'll be right back in the Community Difference.
The Difference Radio, live stream and podcast. The voice of small businesses and the communities they serve.
Over the last 24 months, The Difference has evolved into a powerful internet media company that helps small businesses and local communities and nonprofit organizations create, produce, broadcast, and distribute a variety of shows, all designed to empower our communities, the businesses, the people, the places, and the events that make our cities, communities, and the folks that live there so very special.
With almost 1.5 million viewers and listeners in the last 2 years, The Difference and its unique strategy of positive impact branding has helped communities and small businesses be seen, be heard, and be remembered.
In a world that is consumed with negative press, media manipulation, and propaganda, The Difference, along with many others who believe in and support The Difference, understand that there is no better way to make the difference in our communities than to highlight the unsung heroes and high achievers that call our towns and communities home. And we wanted to create a platform that does just that. One that brings awareness to and reminds folks of the goodness that lives within so many of us and our neighbors.
And don't forget to hit that like, follow, and subscribe button and tune in each week so you can experience the difference.
All right, welcome back. In the midst of this conversation, I want to make sure that we are giving the love to our sponsors. Guys, if you've been outside today, it is really pretty much summer. I think the heat index is 103, which is not desirable. I love my kids' inflatable pool in the backyard that we have now. I might go jump in it after we're done here, which is weird because it's too small for me. But summertime means grilling, right? If you like to grill or if you pretend to like to grill. I think somewhere like in all men is this innate gene to pretend to be good at grilling. Some of us actually are. I don't think I'm one of them. But my good friend Jason Velo certainly is. And he has something called Goodness Steak Seasoning, right? You're always looking for ways to make your steak, make your meat, whatever it is, taste better. Not only does he have a great story behind it, you got to check this out at bringthetasty.com. Bringthetasty.com. Go out, check the story. Great guy. I'm telling you, not only is this good on meat, but it's good on, I put it on eggs, I put it on popcorn, I put it on potatoes, I put it on vegetables. I'm telling you, Goodness Steak Seasoning. It'll make you say, goodness steak, and pass the seasoning. So get to know Jason, get to know his story, his brand, and I'm telling you, it will change your grilling experience for sure. So check it out again at bringthetasty.com, and I promise you, you will be glad you did. So as we hop back in here, Jerah, sorry I cut you off at the break. Hopefully you remember what you were going to say as we dive back in.
Well, and I think that one thing too that I'm noticing, I talk to my friends that are parents about this all the time, and it's being able to have bullying conversations with other parents in a civil manner. No parent wants to believe that their kid is a bully. Okay. But you know what? Sometimes your kid is a bully. And if we're being defensive about that, if someone comes to you and says, hey, I really want to talk to you, I think your kid is bullying my kid, the appropriate response to that is, yes, let's sit down and talk about that. Show me the proof. And then you can deal with that at home, because kids are really good about putting on a front for their parents and not being necessarily truthful behind the scenes. And, my friend Scotty actually told me a story about how he had a very successful conversation with another parent about this. He showed him the social media messages that his daughter, or that her daughter was sending his daughter, and they were able to come up with a plan, and that mother was able to discipline her child and teach her a lesson. And I think that's a huge part of mental health.
Bravo. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask
Jerah,
you.
go ahead.
Let
me jump in.
Sorry, Lenny.
One of the things that, again, that goes back to parent involvement. And I think that so many times with social media, video games, sports, all the different activities that we can use as babysitters for our kids, I think that we allow our kids, and Jerah, you mentioned before about how you used to be able to go to school and take a gun. I remember my ag teacher asked me to bring a new shotgun that I had in my truck in so he could see it. He had always wanted one. I mentioned that I got one for my birthday. It was in the rack of my truck. He said, well, go get it and bring it in here. I want to see it. So
I can't imagine that now.
I walked down the hall with the shotgun. It wasn't loaded. I go in, the ag teacher looks at it. All my classmates look at it. Ooh, all this. I take it back to the truck. That never happened back then. And you know what? There was a lot of fights in our school, but no one ever ran to their truck and got a gun and shot the person they were fighting, much less the rest of the school. When you look at what has changed since then, and everybody wants to blame the gun. I'm sorry, I blame some video games, because people that are detached from reality, if they're watching some of those video games, it becomes inspirational. It's hard for us to comprehend that if you don't have that tendency maybe to get too over involved. I'm not bashing video games. I think it's just like guns. The majority of people can play those and differentiate between virtual reality and reality and not let it carry over.
Yeah, but you've got to be.
Some people can't.
You've got to be.
People can't.
And I'm not. I don't think when Call of Duty people create the game that their goal is to inspire actual violence. I mean, I think we all have this. I remember growing up, my buddy and I would play cops and robbers and cowboys and Indians and all these things. That's probably not politically correct anymore, but whatever. All these things that you kind of see yourself as a hero, right? And it's always missions and all these things you do. So I understand why people are attracted to those games. And I do believe that when you have devolved to a certain point mentally, that can be something that could push you over the top. But all the things that we're talking about here are kind of piecemealed in terms of problems and solutions. You really almost have to work from the most immediate thing backwards. What I mean by that is this. Okay, so the reality is parents aren't healthy mentally. Kids aren't healthy mentally. Our society is pushing disconnectivity. Our society is pushing, creating loners. Our society is telling people that everything that they feel is correct, that they should act on all of their feelings. You've got people that are in these daggum chat rooms where a lot of these, I think, kids and shooters are quote unquote activated, maybe not intentionally, maybe intentionally. That's a whole other conversation. But crap goes on in those chat rooms, which is very unhealthy. But at the end of the day, you've got to, in my view, you've got to start with the incident, right? So we know bad people do bad things, right? We know somehow bad kids are getting possession of guns, and we know that school shootings happen. So to me, the first thing you've got to figure out is, okay, let's assume that another school shooting is going to happen. What can I do to prevent that from happening at my school, physically speaking? Like, what security measures can I put in place? What kind of actions from teachers, parents, involvement? What kind of defense mechanisms, right? And once you've hardened that, then to me, okay, now, all right, how do we start identifying people that might do something like this? And it goes back, first of all, you can't be afraid to do it. Can't be afraid of the repercussions for, maybe being wrong. Maybe Johnny's not crazy. Maybe he's not going to do something, but he's exhibiting some signs, and I'm going to call him out on it. And if he's okay, great, wonderful, that's good news. But if he's not, now I've caught something that has happened, that could have thwarted something worse from happening. So to me, you kind of have to work backwards, because if you try to solve the problem how it should have been solved in the beginning, which is not destroying the family, which is essentially what's led to all of this, and in a general godlessness in a sense, then that's a problem. Like, you're going to have a lot more incidents before you can ever solve that issue, if you can ever solve it at this point. I don't even know if we're at a point where we can work our way back to the root and fix the root. So to me,
we can. I'm not sure that we can.
It's bad for me to say that, but
and let me just say this real quick. I don't think you're never going to stop evil. You're never going to stop it. And if you
not in this lifetime, anyways.
If you take all the guns away, Timothy McVeigh did not have a gun, and he killed hundreds of children. They're going to find a way. But here's how you can stop it: if people will stop being political and stop being so soft-hearted about how we need to fix it. In order to even have a chance against violence, you've got to be better equipped or equally equipped. Jerah knows that. You've got to be more determined to survive than they are to kill you. And the last one is you've got to be willing to be more violent than they are. If you are not, they will always win. The most violent person will win when they decide to be violent. Now, does that mean you've got a bunch of armed military-style people at your school that's running around intimidating people? No. But if I happen to have an inkling to go running into a school, I'm probably going to, one thing is these guys are cowards. They're cowards. Everybody that shoots up a school, that shoots up a church is a coward, because that's why they went to that place. You don't see them going to a gun show. You don't see them going to a bank. You don't see them going to Washington, D.C. and trying to shoot it up, because all those places are protected by armed people, by well-trained armed people. Right. And they're not going to, most of them end up dead. They may have a death wish, but they're intimidated by a stronger force than them. It's the one last, I'm stronger than you, boom, it's over. That's it.
Well, Nathan,
go ahead.
I'm sorry.
I wanted to ask you, I didn't share what you were going to say, but I want to ask you, what are some things as a parent that you would like to see, or that you didn't see when you had your oldest son in school, that you think would kind of help move the ball in the right direction, or down the field in the right direction?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to share with you that I worked for an oil and gas company for about 10 years, small little oil gas company here in Plano. But if you're with an oil and gas company, you have a department, an HSE department, health, safety, and environment. The HSE group is responsible for the health and safety of their employees at all of their locations and the environment. Why do we not have a health and safety group within the district? And let me tell you another thing that they did at Denbury that I was totally floored with, but it was definitely needed. They actually had a security company come out and just kind of try to get access to the building. And I mean, all of our buildings were on lockdown. We had badges you had to swipe to get into the building, everything. But I remember, because I used to work for the C-level guys there, I remember seeing this guy walk down the hallway, and I'm like, who is that? And this individual had to pass at least 10 executive staff members before he was out at the receptionist area. It took until he got maybe down to the sixth person. They were like, okay, that doesn't look right. Who is he? He was part of that security company that we had hired to come into our building and to find the fail-safe areas. Why is that not being done in our schools? Why is there not a component in the school that says, this is our emergency button for lockdown? Hit that button, make sure every door is closed. If it's not closed, they get a warning, just like they did it at Uvlade. there should have been some type of communication on that door saying it was open when they decided to go into lockdown. I mean, I just feel that there's more things that can be done. A health and safety group needs to be implemented. We need to know what are the weaknesses in our schools.
The problem with that, and I completely agree with you, is, Jerah, one of the things that one of the pushbacks on that interview that you did 4 years ago, it seemed to always be about funding. We don't have the funds for this. And then Rachel, when we talked yesterday, you're like, well, maybe we should hire an official accounting firm to actually see where all the money in our school district is going.
Yeah. Well,
where are we wasting money? I mean, just anybody, John the accountant,
that is
somebody.
Nathan,
true.
Nathan, how much money was spent on the COVID relief fund?
Too much to count.
Yeah.
How much was just sent to Ukraine? And I'm not saying they don't need our help.
40 billion.
But how much money? 40 billion. How much has been sent to the countries that hate our guts?
Yeah.
And you tell me, I know you don't believe this, but we have the money.
We have the money.
So here's the deal. And this is what I said. And Rachel, I'll send you the link to my interview. I was on a panel right after the Parkland shooting with CBS 11. And the other people that were on the panel was a young man who had organized a school walkout for gun violence. He was 17, a retired ATF agent, and the president of the Dallas ISD School Teachers Union. Okay. And every solution that I presented, no, we don't have the money for that. And the ATF agent, listen, no, it gets good, girl. The ATF agent said, well, maybe we should stop building $10 million football stadiums for high school students and start funneling some of that money into security. And she didn't have anything to say about that because she had been proven wrong. But I said, look, if money is a problem, why doesn't the administration of the school, if it's a poverty-stricken school, or if there's generally no funding, like, why don't you guys incorporate parents into this? Okay, nobody has more of and we saw it in Uvalde. You want to know who went running into the school? The mom.
Yep,
who
the
was
mom.
Handcuffed.
Yep.
They handcuffed her.
Tased.
She got him to let her go, and she was tased, and she then still ran in there and went and got her kids. And you want to know what she said?
2 rooms.
Yeah. And you want to know what she said that proved my point? She goes, I could hear where he was, and I knew where I was going. She goes, because he was way over here, and my kids were over here, and I was going to go get my kids. So her situational awareness and her ability to determine with her hearing, her senses, where the shooter was, she immediately formulated a plan to go and rescue her children. Now, here's the problem. Here's the problem with hired security. And it's the only problem I have with hired security.
Hey,
I've been hired security. Yeah.
Hold that thought for the other side of the break. I want to hear this. We're going to hit our last break, and then I cut you off twice. I feel terrible. We'll be right back on the Community Difference.
The difference is made possible by the following small businesses.
Real property management focus. An unmatched level of service to property owners, investors, and tenants throughout the DFW Metroplex.
Katie Owen, the insurance gal, helps overwhelmed Medicare-eligible people successfully navigate the enrollment process. When turning 65, retiring, and signing up for Medicare for the first time, it can be confusing. So it's important to get guidance from someone you can trust. Katie helps her clients navigate the enrollment process in a way that eliminates the feeling of being overwhelmed and unsure and leaves her clients feeling relieved and confident. If you have questions about the Medicare process and want advice from someone you can trust, reach out to Katie at 972-943-3943 or at her website, www.insgal.com.
When you need a trusted roofing company on your side to help you out with storm damage repair for your roof, call Cook DFW Roofing. Serving Anna, Melissa, Princeton, Prosper, Van Alstyne, and all of the DFW area.
Red Branch Realty and owner realtor Ashley Gentry are true champions at every level. As a top producer, Ashley Gentry and Red Branch Realty truly embody their mission of being your supporter and partner in your personal real estate journey. So if finding the best representation possible in achieving the American dream of homeownership is important to you, give Ashley a call at 972-342-1869. WeatherTech General Contracting, we make your home renovation dreams a reality.
And by
Alan Lester, branch manager and team lead for the One Group, a branch of Town Square Mortgage. With over 22 years in the mortgage lending industry, Allen and Town Square Mortgage have many loan program options available from conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, jumbo, and many investor and self-employed programs. So if you're looking for the best in the business, give Allen a call at 214-681-0234.
for more information about our sponsors and their services, or if you would like information on how you and your business can partner with or sponsor this show, or others like it. Just check the show description or comments for the relevant links and contact information. And now back to the show.
Welcome back, guys, as we wrap up the final couple of minutes here. I want to give it back to Jerah in just a moment, but I want to make sure we have a question, same question for each of you in just a moment. So, Jerah, you were talking about kind of the issue you had. Armed security is something that people have suggested, but you have a little bit of a problem with that, or one issue at least. Share that with us.
I don't have a problem with it generally, but one thing that we need to point out, if we're being fair, is with armed security, hired security, you have to depend on them to have the same invested interest with your children as you do. We saw the Parkland security guard run. We saw the time that it took for the Uvlade Police Department to decide. And then we had the off-duty Border Patrol agent that was like, excuse my language, but fuck this. And he just went in. Right. And that's the kind of people that we need in these positions. And I think that the solution for some schools, maybe not every school, but some schools, is having a parents safety committee that's part of this department that Rachel is suggesting, that are trained. I've said I would teach it. I mean, in 2018, I said I would teach it. There's a number of qualified instructors that can teach this and get these parents ready. But you can't tell me, especially in schools the size of Plano schools, that you couldn't find 20 or 30 parents that have flexible work schedules that can take half days, and you have a morning people and morning and afternoon people that can armed patrol that school. And then that also may help solve some of the issues with parental involvement that Lyndon was talking about, because the parents are there at the schools. They're seeing what's going on. They're communicating with the administration. They're interacting with the teachers. And now we're coming together to make this prevention actually work.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The last question, or not the last question, but question I want to make sure we have time for, because we've got about 6 minutes here. I'll start with you, Rachel. If money were no issue, which we know it is, unfortunately, should it be? That's a whole other conversation. We talked about, we'd love to see an audit of the books and kind of see how our money's being spent, and not to point fingers. Maybe it's being spent well. I don't know. I'm gonna go towards probably not, though, but that's another issue. But money's no object. You're in charge. What do you do? What's the first thing you do? I want to secure a campus for our kids. I want to make sure everything empowered to prevent this from happening. Right. And I'm not talking about preventing people from thinking about doing it. That's another issue. But just the school itself, I want to keep people from being able to do this at my kid's school. What do you do?
Well, the first thing that I would do is enable teachers to have weapons. I think that, teachers are supposedly first line of defense in the schools. Let them have a weapon, give them the training, put them through, some kind of every 6 months testing or something, just to make sure mentally that they are where they need to be. Do security at the school, get a system wide, monitoring station to where you can monitor everything that's going on. That will not only help with people getting into the building, but that will help with bullying. That will help with the, kids that take things that aren't theirs. I mean, there's a lot of good benefits from that. And then also I would, of course, do the parent safety awareness. We need parents in this. We definitely need more parents in this. Again, I would make smaller class sizes, build more schools. We need to bring the community back together. And to your point earlier, Nathan, I mean, everyone is just so divided, but this is a topic we should not be divided on. This is our kids. This is the safety of our teachers and our families.
100% agree. Jerah, same question to you.
Yes, I agree with a lot of those points. As a matter of fact, after that interview that I did with CBS 11 in 2018, my alma mater high school contacted me. A lot of the people that I went to high school with are now on the school board, and they were like, "We're done with this. We're not going to waste any more time. We want you to come and testify at the next school board hearing as to what it would look like to arm teachers." And I did. And they formulated a plan very quickly, and then they spent the next 6 months training the teachers that wanted to participate, and they even cut out some teachers that they didn't feel like would be the best, to carry a weapon at school, and I think that's okay. So my high school did it. Argyle ISD does it. They're a premier example of what an armed high school should look like. Personally, I think a layered defense is necessary. I think there should be a camera in every classroom and every hallway. I think there should be audio. I think there should be video, especially to your point, Rachel, that would cut down on bullying. We would be able to prove it. We would be able to prove it to the parents. And we would have, some arguments, and evidence, on some things that we were trying to prove. I think that, looking at, there are systems that are out there, that monitor, certain sounds. And so there's a system out there that you can actually install in schools, and some schools are using it, where it can actually track the sound of a gunshot. And if they hear it, and it knows what a gunshot sounds like, it's decibels, it's all that kind of stuff, and it will automatically start lockdown procedures, out of school.
That's amazing.
Awesome.
So I think between parental involvement, between armed security and training, and between these cameras in classrooms and hallways as a layered defense, I think that this could really be some preventative measures. And we all know that camera systems aren't as expensive as they used to be, and there is room in the budget for it. And I think that groups of parents at schools need to come together and put their money where their mouth is and go, we will pay out of our own pockets. We will pay a third party CPA firm, auditing firm, and we want to know how you're spending our money. We want to know how you're spending our property tax money, and we want to know it in the next 6 months.
Agreed.
I couldn't agree with that more. And I want to, obviously I want to give, I know that I'm sure Plano has a lot of stuff in place, and they're working on that. And I talk about that because that's the show. It's about Plano, right? And I'm debating whether or not I'm going to be a father of a Plano ISD student, or a Plano homeschool student, or a Plano charter school or private school student. I have a few years to figure that out. My son's only approaching 2.5 here in a couple months. But, I would have no issue at all being, in fact, I would be honored to be one of the people patrolling a school. Even if my son isn't there, there's 3 schools within less than a mile. I don't care if my kid's there or not. I would sign up to go through training because it's my community. Like, I don't want a school shooting to happen at the school 2 minutes from my house. That I don't care if my kid goes there or not. I mean, that's just a terrible thing. And I would gladly go through the training and be honored to serve in that way. And I think, to your point, Jerah, so many people would. I mean, you never know till you ask. And the problem is, I just don't think people take the time to look at. They're afraid of the blowback, and that's a big problem. And I'm going to wrap us up here, but with issues like this, I mean, we're not talking about certain political issues that you have to say the right thing to make sure you stay in office on both sides of we're talking about life and death here, right? You've got to screw, if you get voted out of office because, enough people don't like you, but your intention is to save lives, then be bold, like be a statesman, right? Don't be a politician. And same thing with parents. I mean, don't be political. Just freaking say what you see. You see somebody acting crazy, say it. You think that your school district is screwing up, say it, right? People need to know, like, parents are the ones that are going to really drive the change here in our law enforcement, in our school districts, how we protect ourselves. And so, ladies, you guys have been awesome. I sent you a text. I'd love to you guys stick around for 5 minutes after we're done just to have a couple of questions for you. But, guys, that has been our time. I hope it has been beneficial. We didn't solve anything today, but I hope it inspired you to act, to take some steps as a parent, or to protect yourself. Maybe you're somebody that's afraid of guns. You have this bad relationship. You don't take some time to learn about guns. Take some time to learn about that may not be the problem, right? That could actually be the solution in saving your life. Take some time to seek truth not just seek the opinion of people that agree with you. You should always be able to back everything you say beyond just, well, this is just how I feel. And so hopefully we can do our best to take feelings out of the situation. Very hard to do, right? We should always work on our emotional intelligence as well as our actual intelligence when it comes to topics. So, guys, this has been a great show. We'll talk to you soon. Have a blessed week. God bless. And we will continue the show next week, Tuesday, same time on the Community Difference Plano. Have a good one.
Thank you for tuning into the Community Difference. If you enjoyed the show, take something you learned and apply it in your community or your business in order to make the difference for someone else. Remember, the smallest change begins with a single action, but a single action can make all the difference. A special thank you to today's amazing guests. Also, if you'd like to be on the show to share your unique story and how it made the difference in your community, please contact Lendon Wilson at lendonw@thedifferenceradio.com. Until next time, this has been the Community Difference in Plano, Texas, hosted by Nathan Smith.